Ms. Hampton?
Here.
Mr. Hooper?
Here.
Mr. Hunt?
Here.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Rochelle?
Here.
You have a quorum.
First thing on is consider the previous minutes. Anybody got any discussion about those? Anybody read them?
Make a motion to approve.
Got a motion? Second, Mr. Hooper. All in favor? Aye. We're going to new business. First thing is surplus property, Highway 13, Mr. Chairman.
The county owns a small parcel located just across Highway 13 from the courthouse. It's a remnant of a larger piece that was formerly the home of the UT Agricultural Extension Service. When the state widened Highway 13, they took the majority of that property, leaving something over 1/10 of an acre that is surrounded by a parcel that's owned by a group who wished to make a purchase of this piece of property. On that map that you have before you, it's number 16 is the parcel in question. The resolution before you declares that surplus and authorizes me to publicize and offer at sealed bid the sale of that property.
We're hearing discussion about
This, like all county property, it's not on the tax rolls. This will put it back on the tax roll, make it part of a larger parcel that can be developed. I don't know that it could be developed the size it is. If you could, with setbacks, you could put anything on it.
Say it's 1/10.
It measures out to slightly over 1/10 of an acre. The commission would have to authorize the sale of the property, but they'd also have to authorize accepting of the bid and once those bids come in. So this is not a final step in selling it, but it does put that.
we just need a motion and a second to carry pass it on. Got a motion, Mr. Phillips. Second, Mr. Rochelle. All in favor of passing this on to the full commission, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next thing is a non-emergency lift assist, Mr. Chairman.
This issue was brought to this committee last month, and after clarification on the position by Mr. Bradford with AMR, the committee agreed that their position on that subject, on the subject of responding to non-emergency calls, was appropriate. Since then, we've had some communication from a district within the fire department who informed emergency communications, E911, that they wouldn't respond to lift assist request, and citing some issues with liabilities as it exists. I've clarified with our insurance underwriter that those response situations are covered from a liability perspective and from a workers' comp perspective, so there's no issue with that. 911 just looking for some instructions from us, from the county, on how to respond to requests for non-emergency, non-injury, non-illness lift assist request. And given that the discovery that those situations are covered from a liability insurance perspective, and after having talked with Dwight Davis, the state EMS director, who informs me that that's the standard in the areas that he's familiar with, that we instruct 911 or the emergency communications department to dispatch local fire assets to these requests, and if upon arrival they determine that there is a medical need, then to pass that along to central dispatch, who will then dispatch the AMR to the call. That's my recommendation.
Any discussion?
In the past, how did we handle, let me give you an example. When my husband was sick and I couldn't get him up, I'll be honest, off the commode, I had to call a relative to come up and lift him up and get him to the couch. Had I known that I could have gotten assistance from the police or the fire department, I would have loved it. I did not know that this existed. I feel like that this would have been a service for a non-emergency and would have helped me, because I was constantly calling family members. And this puts us in a position, if these people are not, if they're not liable and they're volunteers and they're still working for the fire department or they're policemen, this would be wonderful, because I was in a situation where I was really having a rough time.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Go ahead.
in your remarks, you mentioned the fact that you highlight the fact that these are volunteers, and they are. And at the end of the day, we can ask the emergency communications to dispatch a unit of the fire department to answer this need, if this body recommends that that's how we proceed. But at the end of the day, they're volunteers. And if there's no response forthcoming, then they'll have to inform the caller that there won't be a response from an entity that operating either as part of local government or as a contractor to local government. What we have to do is draw the line somewhere on what we can do in terms of providing social type services. We've established long ago that as a result, direct result of problems that we've had with ambulance services, that our duty is to provide response to emergency need, whether that's emergency police need or emergency management, disaster situations, or emergency transport. And you know, this is a situation that goes beyond that self-imposed mandate, and to the point where we have assets available who can and who are willing to do that. I suggest that we put the mechanics of that service in place. But by the same token, I don't believe we can accept the responsibility of providing that service any and all times.
Right.
Because just as I suggest, we have to draw a line somewhere on what we can provide. We don't have assets to provide for every single social service that's out there. And we're these good volunteers who we appreciate for the work they do, and I know sometimes they feel underappreciated, but it's just not reasonable, certainly, to expect an ambulance service who can only operate if they're operating with a margin of profit, short of paying somebody professionally to provide that service. Then this is probably the best we can do. Yeah.
Who is going to make the call if Joe calls 911? Who is going to make the judgment call?
Well,
Whether this is something we've got to look at.
that's a good question. What happens is that the emergency call takers, they They ask that question specifically. They ask, is there an illness or injury involved? And if the response is that there is, then they roll an ambulance unit. If the response is that there's not, they just need some help with the mechanics of a situation, then they're going to ask the fire department to respond. If they do respond, and if they find that there's a medical situation that was previously undisclosed, they'll call for the ambulance.
Mr. Chairman, we have
If I may,
Chief
we have been
Duncan.
doing lift assist for some time in New Johnsonville. And up until this last incident, I don't think there's been a problem within the county. The volunteer fire department doesn't have any problem whatsoever, and I've spoken to Mr. Sean about it, and we've got our arrangement worked out. The only concern that we had was the liability if someone were to be hurt or injured in the process of lifting. He volunteered to come down and go to each of the fire departments that are going to be a part of this and conduct training on even how to lift people or any other type of first aid measure that we deem necessary. So, by all means, I think this would be a great opportunity for us.
With Chief Duncan's statement, I believe that we're all on the same page. To be clear, AMR has been extremely cooperative in this and offers to handle any medical situation that exists without hesitation. Mr. Bradford made that clear when he addressed us last month. Also in the audience tonight, Ms. Tammy Potts and Leslie Mueller from AMR. Ms. Mueller is the CFO of the company, and she's here partially out of concern for any situation that it might appear that we're wanting for service. But to be clear, I don't think that's the case.
Mr. Chairman, being that Mr. Wallace, what he said, that we don't need to take any action at all, and just let it.
Well, I'll agree after what our chief said about the fire department, since they are going to do it and have training. I agree with you 100%.
Good deal.
Mr. Chairman, one other thing too, I've spoken with Mr. Sean, and he also said if we, at any point in time, an individual claims to have an injury or hurts in a certain place, all we've got to do is pick the radio up, call them, and they'll come out. So that shouldn't be an issue on that front either.
When are y'all going to start these training classes?
We can do that just as soon as we can get a schedule together and
After the first of the year?
or sooner. We'll be happy to help the county any way we can.
Hey, we appreciate it, and for what all y'all have done. And like this Jesse said, when you're talking about the fire, it's all free. So, you got to go and got to appreciate what the people do
Oh, of course.
and everything.
We wish we could make every one of these transports or calls. We just can't with the limited resources we have. But I think between the chief and I working together, we can get past that.
We appreciate it.
And also, Mr. Sean has agreed to help us with the first responder program sometime after the first of the year, so that will actually help free up some of his ambulances possible in the future coming on. So that's nothing but a great thing for the community.
We appreciate both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
C is Liberty Contract Tire Recycling, Chairman.
We had previously contracted Mack Tire to handle our waste tire recycling needs. They have sold that business to Liberty Tire. This authorizes me to enter into a contract with them for a continuation of the services that we've been receiving from Mack and will continue to receive from Liberty.
motion, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion, Mr. Coleman.
Second.
Second, Ms. Hampton. Any discussion? All this is just a continuation of.
New name.
Anybody else? All in favor of passing it on? Go on to the full commission. D is everybody should have a copy of the 2015 county road list. Has anybody got any questions about it? Probably the best thing is wait, maybe bring that up the next meeting if there's any, give time to go through it and look at it. And any questions? Or does anybody have any questions?
I don't know whether there's, we adopted this last year in December, and if, assuming a recommendation from this committee tonight, it'd be January. I don't know if there's any time.
We go ahead and make a motion tonight and get rid of it.
You could, might recommend, Mr. Chairman, that if everybody's comfortable with it, pass it on to full commission. I'll give you 2 weeks to look it over, and if there's any problem, we can address it then.
Right. Anybody got any problem, we'll go ahead.
I don't know about, my concern is that there may be some
Right.
mandated necessity for getting it in.
Don't I'll be open for a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a
Make a motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor? E, Mr. Edwards Cemetery Lane. I think we failed last month to bring this up to a vote of what we wanted to do. And so we, to get it right, we've got to have a motion to do something. So, we brought it up and agreed on what had to be done. And that's what Mr. Edwards and them bringing that up to grade to our specifications. And when they do, then we will look at it and be glad to look at it and see what we can do. Has anybody got any questions about what?
Is that the way you want to word it, Mr. Hunt, a motion?
Well,
To deny the request until it's brought up to county standards?
I think that's what we'll have to do, something like that. Like I say, we've discussed it and everybody agreed that they'd have to bring it up to standards before the county could take it into the system.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Dillon.
I'll second.
Tell them to make it.
Any discussion about it? All in favor?
Mr. Edwards has asked. Mr. Edwards in the audience has asked to address the committee.
I didn't see his hand back in there.
I was hoping you would say that it was in the 2015 road book.
Well, if you got your hand up, we can.
Is it in the 2015 road
Yes, sir.
book? Did, when I left the meeting last time, I was under the understanding that you would research and see.
I have researched back to a call after I left here. We'd already talked to Mr. Woods and the other one, and then I called Mr. Jack Buchanan, which was the one before that, and he said it was not. He said the same thing. It went to the creek, and that's all and that's far back as I've dug.
Well, it's strange that I have state maps that show it going all the way to the cemetery. Under Davis Cemetery Road, it was at one time called Davis Cemetery. And I've passed those maps along, you've seen them. I thought all we would be doing would be correcting an error.
You said one thing. You said state maps. We're looking at Humphreys County map. And matter of fact, I even went a little further. I had a privilege of last last week was a meeting of the former Houston County road superintendent. And so I brought him involved of it, and he said, yeah, I know all about it. And he called it the Davis Cemetery, okay? And I'll tell you that. But he said, when I was in there, he said, I would grade it one time, and the Humphreys County man would grade it one time. He said, we had a standard, and that's what we done. But and here again, he said it went to the road, to the creek. And then he told me, he knew about the bridge that y'all pulled across. He knew about that.
Well, I personally have witnessed Humphreys County road grader over there grading the road when there wasn't a funeral. It was one of the boys that live out on Hurricane. What was his name? That worked for the county so many years. He was grading the road there.
I mean, I personally agree with you, because that was back in the times that we did not have the laws that we have today. You know, if they get off on a road, if they come onto my house and grade that road, they can be fined tomorrow. The state has got so many different rules and laws now that they can't do it. And years ago, they used to do it.
It calls it Davis Cemetery Road, all the way to the cemetery. And the county, Humphreys County, maintained a crossing. Mr. Carter has said he's put in several crossings. He since said for cemetery, for burials. But I know he's built some permanent ones, those low water wooden bridges. And I thought it was going to be a simple thing when I came down here, just to correct an error that dropped the name out of the system.
Well, here's the road, our road list of all the county roads right here, okay? This one, and here it again, it's the Edwards Cemetery Lane, dead end, okay? It goes exactly what I announced last month, 0.21, which, like I say, goes 50 to 100 feet before you get to the creek. Mr. Woods and I went out and measured it.
He tied a ribbon right where the crossing is,
Right.
Mr. Chairman. I can
I'll
show
agree.
it to
That's
you.
the 0.21.
That's correct.
That's what this calls for.
Yep, that goes to the creek.
Right.
And he has a very good explanation for that. Do you know, has he told you why he thinks it stops there? He says the state came out and measured all these roads at one time. And when they drove down Edwards Cemetery Road and then Edwards Cemetery Lane to the creek, he stopped because there was no way to get across the creek. The road is there. The road has always been there. Luff Boyne used to drive across the creek in a hearse. But the creek now, unfortunately, is about 3 feet or 4 feet deep where the crossing is.
I agree.
And Mr. Woods last spring promised a crossing. And then when we quizzed him this past summer, he said, oh no, I can't do it because there's no road there. And I said, yeah, there's a road there. It's been there for 100 years. And Humphreys County maintained it. I would think there was some kind of past precedent that would take effect there.
Like I say, you know, we've got no choice with this being listed 0.21 to the creek.
Yeah.
That's what we, and he's not gonna back down from that. He will maintain it to there. But from there across is where we have
That's
the
why I'm
problem.
asking you, there's a resolution somewhere around here that 2 commissioners have signed and the chairman of the planning commission signed to continue on.
That's right, but it's gotta come before the full commission before it can do that. And that's what we're looking at right now. But we go back, and that's the reason we're looking at, it's gotta be brought up to our standards to for you to get it.
It's a single track road, but what is a single track road standards?
Whatever what you tie in, we can't, we're talking about a bridge of some kind. We're talking about 10, 15, 20 to $300,000. If we put a concrete bridge across there, which y'all are wanting,
No, that's
one
not what I'm
side,
wanting.
up
I'm
to
wanting
there.
a low water crossing.
But here
Old
again-
wooden bridge, just like what used to be there forever.
here again, if we put a bridge that you can go in and lay in there for somebody to cross at the funeral, okay? Somebody's got to do that. Then we've got to get that a permit by to the state. We can't go back to what was there 20 years ago.
Either I misunderstood him or he's wrong. Mr. Woods says you don't need a permit for that. You need a permit for something really permanent, like concrete and all that.
I don't think so. I think we're gonna have a permit period if you put anything across that creek. What he's not here, he's not here. I know the last time I talked to him, he said he was almost certain we had to have a permit. That's what I was going on.
Well, I ask forever Commissioner's support in this, and I request that you pass it on to the full commission. Thank you.
We've got a motion made and we've got a second. Any more discussion?
What is the motion, Mr. Chairman?
That we drop it until we get, let her read it.
The motion is to deny the request until brought up to county standards, to deny the resolution before us.
Roll call on, please.
Mr. Coleman,
No.
Mr. Dillinger,
Yes.
Ms. Hampton,
Yes.
Mr. Hooper,
No.
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle.
Yes.
The motion passed.
So, Mr. Everett, if you'll bring, if you get brought up to specification, come back to us, and we'll be glad to look at it. But right now, we can't see it, the way it is. And like I say, I'll keep digging. If I can find where it was in this road list, we'll bring it back up, or I will. But so far, I have not found it. It's the same measurements everywhere I go back through there.
Thank you.
Anybody else got anything to say back in the audience?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a second? All in favor? Aye.